and thank you for coming to my cooking channel, Real Food for Real People from Scratch. Now, today we're gonna make the most delicious Southern fluffy biscuit, gluten-free. You heard it, gluten-free. And in case you don't know this, at spinachtiger.com, my regular gluten Southern fluffy biscuit is a viral post, and if you go there you can read the comments and you can find out why. It's one of the most amazing biscuit recipes ever, and yet it's so simple. Well, I got to thinking I need to try to make a fluffy biscuit just as good gluten-free. So I got to practicing, and here we go. First of all, I do not make my own gluten-free flour, and for this reason, because I want you to be able to go to the grocery store and find a decent flour and work with that. So I use, and this is no commercial, I just happen to like this one-to-one Bob's Red Mill. Not the one with the peas in it, but this one, blue. You might have a gluten-free flour that you love, and I'm hoping that this recipe will transfer to other good gluten-free flours. So the first thing we do is we're gonna add our dry ingredients and get them, well actually the first thing we do, take your rings off. That's what I always do, because you might be getting your hands in it and you don't want the bacteria from your ring and the biscuit on your ring. So I always take my ring off, set my oven to 450. We're gonna do middle rack. I have my pan that I'm gonna bake these in ready to go, and that's gonna be this cast iron. You can use a cast iron frying pan, or you can use your regular baking sheet. That'll work just fine too. Then you wanna take 6 tablespoons of butter, cut them in little cubes like this, and freeze this. I usually use a paper plate. You freeze this for about 15 minutes. If you have it frozen overnight, which is fine, just take it out a little bit ahead of time so that it's not too cold. And there's a really important reason. I'll explain why we do that. The next thing we're gonna do, let's just mix our wet ingredients so they're ready to go. And that's gonna be an egg into a full cup of buttermilk. With gluten-free baking, if you're familiar with that, the egg is gonna be our binder. My secret to the gluten-free for fluffiness is ricotta cheese, and I use one that doesn't have a lot of water. If you have a very watery ricotta cheese, just paper towel that water out. That's 3 tablespoons. And just to let you know the recipe, there's going to be a link here in the video to the recipe and a link to spinachtiger.com, and I have about 18 biscuit recipes, so I'm thinking that this formula is going to transfer to most of those. And if you do that, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. So I mixed that up pretty good, and I also added a pinch of baking soda to the buttermilk, which is something I do with all of my biscuits. Now we're going to take our dry ingredients. So we've got some salt, sugar, that was actually sugar, salt, tablespoon of baking powder. Now let's get that all whisked together. Now I like to use a really big bowl. These are inexpensive stainless steel bowls. They come in super handy for all kinds of things, because we're going to make the biscuit and pat it in this nice big bowl that's ready to go. Now the first thing we add to that is our butter, and let's get this done. If you're familiar with any of my biscuit recipes, you know that I always do the butter by hand. You can use a pastry cutter, but this was something I invented a long time ago because I wanted to teach 5-year-old boys how to make biscuits. You can watch the video of that, the Southern Fluffy Biscuit video, and you'll see the technique, even though this recipe is slightly different. And I just want you to know, I didn't want them to hurt themselves. I wanted something kids could do, so do invite your children into the kitchen. And if you have a gluten-free household, this is going to be awesome, because they're going to see how good the gluten-free products can be once you play around with the recipes. I played around about 10 times until I got the biscuit recipe that I liked. Okay. So we've got all that. Now we're gonna add, and I'm not gonna add all of this just yet because I'm gonna have to feel how much I'm really gonna need. In the regular flour doesn't need as much. Now that's seeming, and I'm gonna use my hands because that's really the way to try it. I want a sticky dough. This is the secret. This is why my biscuits are so great, and everybody, Southern women, I've been to Southern shows demonstrating biscuits, Williams-Sonoma demonstrating biscuits, and I take it as a great compliment when I hear the Southern women say, this is the best biscuit I ever had. Okay, we need more of that liquid because it's just not sticky enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and put all of that in. There are different days, you can tell. Oh, by the way, there's something else I wanna tell you while I'm doing this. I measured with I weighed my flour. And I'm gonna tell you, when I measured it out with measuring cups, I came to X amount of grams. But when I weighed it, it was a lot less. We tend to put too much flour in our products. This is 288 grams of flour. That will be in the recipe, so do follow the link to get the exact recipe. Now this is what I want. It's sticky and it's wet. It has absorbed all of the flour. That is exactly what we want. Now, how are we gonna cut that? You're probably wondering, but I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna take some more flour. That's why I have you reserve another about 1/4 cup. And at this point, you're probably gonna have to wash your hands. Okay. Now, you can do this in the bowl or take it out of the bowl so you can see it better. I'm gonna take this out of the bowl. I'm not gonna play with this too much because we don't play with biscuit dough. You play with bread dough, you play with pasta dough, but you do not play with biscuit dough because we want them nice and fluffy. And we pat it down, and I think this is about 8 inches across 7. I think it's about 7 inches is about right. Now look at that, it's gonna cut, voila, it's gonna cut, it's awesome. Okay, now I am going to cut my biscuits right up. Now this dough is a little softer than most biscuit doughs because it doesn't have the gluten. So just be aware of that. Sometimes I'll just shake it out, and I'm not gonna have these touch, which is what you do with regular biscuits. You have them kiss to rise. I have found with my gluten-free, I don't want them touching. So, you know, I have really put some time into figuring this out for you. And I would love to hear from you over on Facebook. You can find me everywhere with Spinach Tiger. I'm on Instagram, Spinach Tiger, Facebook, Spinach Tiger, Twitter, Spinach Tiger. And I'll also answer any questions. If you email me, spinachtiger@me.com, I'll email you back maybe within the hour sometimes, and sometimes within the day. And I love to help other people have happiness in the kitchen. Okay, so how many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we're getting 9 biscuits today. Because this one I'm gonna put back in here, it's not as high as I want it to be. Now, if your biscuit isn't as high as some of the others, just push them together. We're trying to get height uniformity. And if it's too high, flatten it down. I think we're getting like 10 biscuits, but I don't think I have room. And that's because I usually have my biscuits touching. Let's just move this around a tiny bit. Now, the last thing that we do before we stick them in the oven, and I want you to check them at 13 minutes because you just never know. This is half and half. You can use cream, you can use your buttermilk, you can use milk. I never waste an egg for an egg wash. This just helps them brown on the top. Just a little, not too much. Now these are gonna go in the oven and I'll be right back to show you what these look like. Okay, back. I did these for exactly 15 minutes. Look at this. Make sure that the camera gets this. These are beautiful. They almost could fool anybody. You know, I baked these in my experimental moments and gave them to my mom, who's eaten my biscuits like 100 times, and she didn't even know they were gluten-free. So here's some of the things that I want to show you that I look for in a good biscuit. Woo, it's a little hot. Nice and brown underneath, nice and brown on the top. Now, we here in the South, we all eat our biscuits differently, but I like it fluffy, so you can see there's fluffy, and I like it a little crispy on the top. My husband likes his with honey, but I like mine with butter, or sometimes just nothing. And that is what I call a beautiful gluten-free biscuit. Now, if I make 10, if you want them a little higher, just make 8. You know, push them together. Now I'll tell you how they taste. Very good. That was a good biscuit. I'm gonna put these on this beautiful little cake plate and get them off of here so that they start to cool off. And let me tell you why. Unlike the regular biscuit, what I have discovered about the gluten-free Southern Fluffy biscuit is you need to let them cool off a little bit. If you start to eat them hot, because this is a different type of flour, if you start to eat them hot, your biscuit may go a little gummy. So once they cool off, they actually get fluffier and taste a little more authentic. So you do want them to cool off a little bit, but I hope you really enjoy the fluffy Southern biscuit. And another thing I want to tell you is I'm going to put a link right now to Spinach Tiger's biscuits. There's about 18 different recipes. They are made with regular flour. But if you use the ricotta cheese and the gluten-free flour and the egg, those 3 things that you change and add to the recipe, you should be able to make all of those biscuits. There's a cinnamon rolled biscuit. There's blueberry biscuit, blueberry thyme biscuit, there's strawberry biscuits, and I have some gluten-free scones. So go to Spinach Tiger to get more gluten-free recipes. And thank you so much for coming to SpinachTiger.com, cooking real food for real people from scratch. And don't forget to subscribe, because I really do appreciate that.